Home Impodcast time!
That's right, a company that's somewhat synonymous to Binford Tools is proud to present a home improvement podcast. How you doing, Jordan?
Not too bad. I'm feeling good about this week's episode. I feel like we've recorded it closer to when I watched it, so I might have some more prudent things to say this time.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll appreciate that, and hopefully the audience will as well.
You didn't feel prepared for our episode on offsides?
I mean, maybe it was
just too complex for you. Is it possible you just didn't understand it?
You know, a lot of that football talk went way over my head.
Yeah, just a computer nerd like you're just not too into the sporting
It's not
world.
Sportings is confusing.
You know, funny enough, I was doing some research for the podcast, and I was looking at a list on Ranker, which is not a reputable website by any means, like of the 10 best home improvement podcasts, not home improvement podcasts, of the 10 best home improvement episodes, and Offsides ranked number 3 on that list, so that was their third-rated home improvement episode, so we might be in for a long haul here, if that's the third best one of all time.
Well, there's no one I'd rather haul with than you.
I appreciate that. So this week we are looking at episode 4 of the series, also episode 4 of the podcast, Satellite on a Hot Tim's Roof. It debuted October 8th, 1991, and was written by Allison Gibson. So Satellite on a Hot Tim's Roof. Jordan, do you understand the reference? Did you pick up on the reference right away?
Yeah, I assumed it had something to do with a different work of a different kind, just like some other episodes like Mo Better Blues, but I just Googled something on a hot tin something, and that pulled up Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which I'm sure you pulled up as well, and it is a Tennessee Williams play about an arrogant son returning home to see his dying father, and I can't say that it has much other relevance to the episode besides the title.
Yeah.
Did you find any other similarities between the play and the episode we're about to cover?
Well, I haven't read the play, so this is a good thing for us to talk. It's always good when two people that don't know something about a subject talk about it in detail. No, I had not read the play. I understand that the reference, but it doesn't seem like these references, whether it be Mo Better Blues or Cat on a Hot Tim's Roof, really have a lot of relevance when it comes to the actual content. I think they're just doing wordplay. So.
Yeah, it's not doing much for me, but hey, whatever. All
right, so we have a storyline from Tony Topola of Finland.
Who else?
Our favorite. That's Tony with an I. Just to be clear. So Tony says, on tool time, Tim is working on a wood table with a power saw with predictable results. Al is going to help out Lisa with her bookshelf. At home, Tim decides to install a huge new satellite dish all by himself. He is also jealous about a guy who's willing to help Jill prepare for a job interview on Saturday. So thank you, Tony Topola, for that review. And, I say we just get right into the episode here, Jordan.
Let's do it.
All right, so as I promised last week, I'm going to be talking about the introductory sequence because it is so long. And I have some things to talk about this week. So, just to return to what we talked about last week, I watched the end a couple times, and when they're looking up at the sky, here's the best explanation of what it is. It's the Home Improvement logo being drawn up into the sky by pinwheels, it seems.
Yeah, pinwheels, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Metallic pinwheels.
Just a variety of different pinwheels. I don't know what it means, I don't know what it is, but that is the best explanation of what I have. And then I want to focus this week on Brad's shirt that he's wearing in the opening sequence. I think it's a really cool shirt Brad's wearing. It's like short sleeve collared, kind of a cool design. It looked like something that someone might wear in like Austin, Texas, or someone presenting at like a film festival, a Brooklynite. So it's one of those things that's like unintentionally cool. Like sometimes, my dad will wear things that don't really match, but they're like unintentionally he dresses very cool sometimes, and I think that this was sort of like that. So I really liked Brad's shirt. Do you know the shirt I speak of?
I don't. I wasn't paying attention necessarily to what they were wearing, but what they were doing. And what I looked at this time around is I looked at like what the kids were doing when they introduced them, and you had Mark doing some home improvement stuff. He was using caulk and had his safety goggles on.
Watch your language.
Sorry, caulking. And Randy was like swinging from a tree from their treehouse or something. And they had Brad doing the only thing apparently that he's done on the show so far, which is like turn on a TV.
Brad has not gotten really anything to do yet.
He's been relegated to TV duty, and that's
he's only had, I would say, he's maybe under 15 lines total. Like, Lions just recovered a fumble, and like he watched Spartacus in that one episode. But Brad, when I think of the kids, like Brad gets a lot to do later on. But as of now, yeah, he's not doing much. But I do like that shirt, and I would like to get my hands on that shirt. Is kind of
that size. Would that size fit you at this point?
Yeah. Brad and I are about the same. Brad and the show and my height right now are about the same. So
figures.
All right, so let's get into the actual episode. You want to go ahead and start things off?
So the show opens with a tool time scene, which is nice. That we actually get some moments on tool time with Al. It's not a long scene by any means, but it's a little bit more conversation with Al than we've seen in the first couple episodes, and a lot more of what we see with Tim on the tool time set in the future as well. The premise is basically Al and Tim are going to show you how to use a router, and there's kind of the juxtaposition with Tim wanting to do it freehand, and Al says you should use a guide to make sure that you don't mess up your cut. Tim makes a joke about daydoos or something.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, he says...
You know what daydoos are, of course.
Yeah, of course. But,
and Al does like a deadpan reaction, which I always like those. Those are good for me.
Al says, "I'm not married, Tim," and that just gets huge laughs. The people in the audience, they really love the fact that Al's not married. It's not a meaningful scene at all, and it doesn't really set much up. It is good to see Al and Tim together.
And you get a brief appearance of Pam Anderson as Lisa for like a second before.
Yeah, the crowd goes wild.
The crowd loves that, and Tim takes the praise.
Yeah, he says thank you as if they're cheering for him. It's definitely like a different Al early on. He's very very stern, and it is deadpan, but he's playing it pretty serious. It seems like it definitely, the character evolves as time goes on. I mean, he's not saying very much, and what he's saying is like it's very much like short, segmented sentences. Like he's not given a lot to work with. He doesn't seem to really have emotion. It's almost like a Terminator type figure, like robotic, I would say.
Al the Terminator.
That's something I've been thinking about as far as a spec script.
That's going to be your next fan.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. So yeah, they have the classic. They have the back and forth. Did you notice the one guy in the audience that like just kept losing it? They kept cutting the audience, and this one guy was just laughing so hard that like his body was like gyrating around. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't see that part, but I heard there was like a really weird laugh that was like just one person.
No doubt,
laughing.
The same guy. Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, I assumed that belonged to the person you were talking about. So yeah, I got the audio part, but not the visual part.
So near the end of the scene, near the end of the recorded scene, Tim gives Alpena, Michigan a shout out, which I was confused by when it happened, and they sort of returned to that later on. But I guess that kind of answers our questions about Home Improvement being like very much like a local show. So Channel 97, specific cities are getting it on like just their basic cable. So that was actually kind of a nice localized sort of a shout out. Because Alpena, I don't know if you've ever been there, but small northern Michigan city, 10,000 people. So I liked that just from like a world building standpoint.
Yeah.
And then we go backstage. The show is over. Al and Tim talk a little bit. It's the first time I think we've seen Al off tool time camera in the show. Tim asks Al if he's interested in kind of helping him set up the satellite dish that he's recently purchased, and Al says that he needs man time. He wants to be alone. We find out later on that he's actually going over to Lisa's house, Pamela Anderson Lee, perhaps not Lee, to help her do something. So he didn't
put up a bookshelf.
Yeah, to put up a bookshelf. So he didn't really need man time or alone time. He just wanted to not help Tim out. So.
Yeah, he blatantly lies to his boss.
Yeah.
So risky move by Al.
Yep.
But
So
I guess it might pay off later. Who knows?
It might. It might.
Did you have something to say about this scene?
No. No. It was the opening scene. It's the whole episode is Well,
perhaps not one of the jewels in the old crown.
No, that's for sure. And this opening scene didn't do much for me.
So let's leave the tool time set. Why don't
please.
we? We're please right away. So we go back home with Jill and the boys. Tim smells the delivery truck that's gonna deliver the satellite dish. While the boys go look for the truck that's coming, Jill gets a call from Rondall, a teacher from her job search seminar.
Yeah, I had trouble with the name. At first, I
couldn't figure out how to spell it.
Yeah, I wrote. Yeah, at first I thought they were like doing like a rolled doll joke, like the guy that like the writer of like BFG.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe that'll like I didn't, which is actually
I thought that was his first.
It's
name
too highbrow for Home Improvement, like a rolled doll joke. Yeah, I thought it was Ron.
I thought it was Ron
space,
and then DOLL.
I wrote DAHL. But it's actually, and if you're wondering how good this episode is, the fact that we're spending so much time talking about this guy's name might indicate that. It's actually Rondall, so Rondall Kittleman, according to IMDb. So Rondall is the first name. So yeah, it's
lovely.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, Jill is having a friend come over, Rondall, and he's like a resume guru or something.
Yeah, I mean, so he's leading the job search seminar that she's attending, and offers to help her personally with getting her set up for. I think she has an interview coming up on Monday.
Yeah, and
she wants to be prepared for that.
This has been kind of pre-established that like Jill, I think in the first episode,
she's getting back in the working
world.
world.
She's trying to work. She's going a little stir crazy. It's important to her that she has a job. It's something that she really wants. So Rondall is going to come over and help her. Tim raises an eyebrow at this man. He finds out that they've had coffee together, and Tim immediately is curious about the situation, the setup, and we'll come to find out, that maybe Tim is right in his jealousy and his kind of assumptions. Around the same time, we see Tim outside. The satellite dish is brought in by two delivery men. They find out that Tim intends to try to get it on the roof by himself.
But did you realize that satellite dishes were that
Oh
big,
my gosh, yeah.
20 years ago?
It looked like something like a Bond villain would use to like take over the world. Yeah, like a laser. Yeah, like they're trying to like freeze a whole planet or something. It was at least 6 or 7 feet wide and 5 to 6 feet in height. It was enormous. Yeah, that was really laughable, actually.
Yeah, I did not realize. Yeah. So my DirecTV satellite does not look quite like that anymore, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. If you're not careful, we're going to lose our charter sponsorship. So better not.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So during this part as well, there is a more adult themed joke about mounting the satellite and pointing it straight up, and then Jill responds with something to the effect of keeping it up for longer than 10 seconds. So the crowd really likes that, and of course, I'm sure we didn't get that when we were younger. But
I would have picked up on that. I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
You were.
Yeah.
You knew a lot from the book sides. That's how you learned everything.
Yeah, around the same time I was watching those Smart Guy episodes and seeing him take a sip of beer and getting drunk, I knew about such things. So the joke was not lost on me. I'm sure. It's a weird joke for them to make. It's like excessively dirty, I would say.
Well, and the kids are right there.
Yeah.
Too, so.
No, it's like a joke about mounting, and then a joke about like being able to last sexually for more than 10 seconds. It's it's unlike anything we've seen on the show to this point. Just from that kind of it's quite raunchy. It caught me off guard.
Raunchy.
It's not that, and it's not funny. Not really.
No, but it certainly builds the sexual tension, and to break that sexual tension, Rondall arrives.
Oh, does he ever? And Rondall, as if the name is like not enough to make you think this guy is going to be a jerk. He shows up wearing like a suede jacket and then a sweater underneath. He has a leather briefcase to his side, and he has the most like punchable face I've ever seen. It's a really good job casting, because the second he just walks in, he looks so smug and like just like such an arrogant sort of prick that I immediately knew I wasn't going to like him.
He's got the stench of academia on him.
Whoa,
it's kind of like you.
as someone, kind of in academia, I resent that.
You take offense to
Yeah,
that.
I think he's got the look of like a car salesman.
Yeah, well, I don't know if car salesmen wear those kind of sweaters, but we'll have to do some more research.
Depends on what
to
kind of
figure
car
that
you're
out.
buying.
All right, let's move on.
So let's talk. I want to talk about the actor playing Rondall. So
Sure.
Rondall is played by Sam McMurray. 179 credits to his name. He's been very prolific for quite a long time. Films he's been in Raising Arizona, Christmas Vacation, and others, but primarily his work has been television. So just a couple of credits: Masters of Sex recently, Breaking Bad, Friends, Sopranos. And then a lot of voice work roles, Hey Arnold, and then Recess. He played Gus Griswold's dad, Lieutenant Griswold. And I definitely recognized his voice. And you said you recognized him from his Friends.
Yeah, I recognized him from Friends. He plays like Chandler's raunchy boss. Okay. So I could definitely see him playing this role right now. So I agree. Good casting. I recognized him right away from that as well.
Yeah, and he's not a likable character in this episode, but the performance itself is fairly memorable. In an episode where not a lot of things stand out, I think that his Rondall take is something that I might, remember down the road.
Yeah, thank goodness for the Rondall conflict, because otherwise, oof.
Yowzer. Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. So Tim and Rondall end up alone, and so they kind of have a pretentious conversation about. Rondall says that he's funny, gives him a compliment, but Tim, basically anything that Rondall says, Tim's going to take offense to at this point. So when he says he's funny, he tries to say that the Tool Time show is actually serious, and they try to do serious things.
Well, you're right, but Rondall is meaning he's like being a jerk. He's not trying.
Yeah.
They're backhanded compliments, to be sure.
Yes. And then he basically says he's funny, unlike the other guy who knows everything, implying that Tim doesn't know anything.
Yeah, Tim. And Jill says something about that later on. Like they're really this is like the first episode where people are outwardly stating that Al is just more proficient with tools than Tim. Tim, it's a tough episode for Tim. But yeah, Rondall and Tim, they have a back and forth. What becomes sort of what I would call is a man-off, where they're both trying to assert their masculinity. And then it takes the form of what Tim, does best, grunting. And I think we have a clip of this.
Do that thing you do on the show, that barking sound,
it's really not barking, it's more like a simian, a grunt. Oh.
Yeah, barking, grunting, whatever. It's very funny. Very funny show. You're very funny on it.
But it's not all fun and games. It's a home improvement show, basically, is what we do.
Well, yeah, but you're very funny on it. I mean, not like the other guy on the show, the guy who knows everything.
Al's my assistant. He assists me.
So Rondall refers to the grunting as a bark, which Tim doesn't like. He's put a lot of thought into this grunting persona.
Can we pause for a minute? And, it's been a couple episodes since we tried our own, grunts. The first time around, mine was referred to by a friend of ours as sort of something like Scooby-Doo. So I would like a chance to redeem myself.
Yeah, I think I'm already I'm gonna retire on top, but I'd love to hear and see if you've improved.
Okay, all right. Give me a second to sort of. Still not good, right?
I just I have no comment.
All right, well, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I'll keep trying. Sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead and resume your.
Put in some more practice.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. So go ahead and pick it up. Sorry.
Yeah, so, let's see. That scene basically ends with them kind of, as opposing sides. They've kind of needled each other enough, and Jill then mentions, Jill gets back into the scene here. I think they go into the house after having this conversation, and Jill mentions that he should ask Al's help, just like Rondall said, so she's kind of on the same side, and like you were saying, kind of questioning his talents, and then Rondall talks about when he got his satellite installed.
Yeah, that seemed pretty convenient that Rondall just happened to have a satellite dish recently put in.
And he, of course, uses a bunch of fancy terms like declination and all this kind of stuff about how the satellite should be set up properly.
Which is not true.
I mean, when they installed the satellite here, I'm pretty sure they just pointed it up and the computers did the rest.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
So as long as they were pointing in the same general direction, it seemed to work
So you
okay.
mean you didn't try to install your own satellite dish?
I did not. I don't think they let you do that. Really,
Yeah,
with,
I'm not sure if that's. I'm not sure if that's a thing.
No, maybe the old.
Yeah, this was
ways with those giant
1991,
ones.
so yeah,
Things were a little more.
you
Wild
gotta
West
believe
back
the
then.
satellite installation game has changed a bit over the past, couple of decades.
Just a little bit.
So.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So Tim basically leaves Jill and Rondall to do their work on the resume. He's a little huffy and puffy from the conversation, and his jealousy really is showing at this point. Goes back outside, and luckily Wilson's out there. Tim is obviously looking for validation, and Wilson. Well, the first thing he does, he asks if Wilson watches Tool Time.
Yeah. He said he mentions like, yeah, you know how on my show, so and so, such and such happens, and Wilson says, yeah, I've actually never seen your show, and that was maybe the only laugh that I got in this episode.
Yeah, he mentions that he uses his imagination instead.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, which is what you would come to expect. Yeah, so poignant words from Wilson, to be sure.
As always. And before we talk too much about the scene, we do have another clip of this, so let's go ahead and play that.
Tim, I got the feeling you got something more on your mind than television.
Not really, Wilson. It's just Jill is working on a resume with this guy, a know-it-all type. He's trying to impress her.
And that worries you.
Well, I'm not jealous. I'm the least jealous guy on earth, really.
Curious thing about jealousy. Usually it stems from insecurity.
There's no insecurity here, I'll tell you that. However much I'm not jealous, I'm twice as much not insecure.
Well, you should be secure, Tim. You've got what every man dreams of.
Yeah, satellite dish.
No, Tim. 3 strapping boys, a nice home, a loving wife.
You're so right, yeah.
So Tim is insecure, and I would say, I don't know if he understandably so, but I think that Tim has every right to be sort of off-put by the situation. What do you think about that?
Just in general, from what he knows,
Yeah,
as far as this guy coming over there.
This guy's coming over.
I would say he doesn't have any issues until, he shouldn't have any issues until they have that conversation outside where Rondall is, actively antagonistic towards him. Yeah. That's where it kind of turns for me. At first, I'm like, it's just a guy.
Yeah.
But then, that's where it kind of changes for me, where it gets a little bit more. I move a little bit towards Tim's side.
Yeah, he definitely Rondall kind of establishes himself as an antagonist in that back and forth. So yeah, Tim is insecure, and Wilson does his best to sort of, calm him down, assure him, put things into perspective, as Wilson is wont to do. He says, you don't need to be insecure. You have what every man dreams of. You have 3 boys, a beautiful home, and a loving wife. Tim agrees. He says, yeah, you're right. Nobody, we share a lot of laughs. We have a lot of good times. Nobody makes Jill laugh like I do, which is, I guess, just Tim trying to, sort of, stake his claim. He's trying to make himself feel better. So then we cut back inside to Jill and, the beloved or oft-mentioned Rondall. And I felt like Jill was flirting with Rondall.
Really?
You didn't think so?
What made you think that?
She's just laughing at everything he's saying, and he's not funny.
Well, yeah, he's not.
He is aggressively not funny. If people listen to this podcast and they think we're not funny, just imagine that on just a microscopic scale. He's not funny at all. And they're telling that story about they're laughing about where someone they tell a story.
Forgets what they were
someone
say.
Who is always has questions, raises her hand at a seminar, stands up and says, "I forgot what I had to say," and they're just laughing about it, and they tell Tim, and Tim doesn't think it's funny because it's not, and they're like, "Oh, you had to be there." I don't know. It seems like they have this relationship and these inside jokes and stuff, and if I were Tim and I was in the room for that, I'm not sure I would love it either.
No, I guess not. I guess the way I was thinking about it was that she's just kind of happy that he's here to help, because obviously we know that she really wants to get back in the working world, and she's struggled to get interviews and be successful with them, and she sees this as like her ticket to a job. So I guess I didn't see it as much as like flirtatious as just like trying to be accommodating to him, but that obviously blurs the line, and we'll see later that Rondall would take it the other way, right?
Yeah, and I think that when she's asking him for like outfit tips and stuff, that's when things are. That was.
Yeah, I mean,
that was
you know how to dress.
That was peculiar.
You just be professional.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like she's asking like if it's gonna make her neck look big, and it's like, Jill, have you?
If people are worried about your neck looking big, then you probably don't want to work.
Right. Yeah. And we should have mentioned earlier, Jill's hair in this episode is kind of strange. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice that. Well,
she has like a side ponytail. I mean, maybe it's just.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Maybe it's just of the era, but it's a different look. Like what we've seen out of Jill so far has been, just like very plain and sort of, just I would say mom attire. Her hair has just been very plain, and outfits much
Maybe
much
she
the
was
same.
wearing the ponytail like that to throw Rondall off.
Well, it didn't work. But yeah, that was something in an episode where I didn't observe very many things of note. That was something that I picked up on. It was it was nice to see Jill trying something new. Good for her.
Sure. Yeah. So they're talking at the table, and Rondall has brought some sample resumes for her, and he forgets them in the car. So he runs out to the car. And this is where Tim and Jill get to chat about his insecurities and what he thinks is going on. He starts rummaging through Rondall's stuff, which I thought was an interesting move, knowing at any moment Rondall can come back.
Yeah, that's one of those things that we call just like very sitcom-y.
Yeah, and we get the second adult joke with the breath mints and the cigarettes, the before and the after.
Yeah.
So that one wasn't. Compared to the first one, I thought it was a little bit more veiled.
Yeah, that was actually sort of. I thought that was sort of funny.
Yeah.
Does it make sense that he's keeping breath mints and cigarettes in his briefcase as opposed to like his pockets? I'm not so sure, but
he doesn't like to have things in his pockets.
It's always funny to see these '90s shows where like people do smoke, and like a man that is like supposed to be like respected and reputable is a smoker. That's very much not something you see on television now. Like
no.
Like on Mad Men maybe, because that was set in the '60s. But there are very few. I can't really think of any contemporary shows where the characters are smokers. I mean, can you think of anything?
No, I was thinking more because we talked about Sam McMurray being on Friends.
Yeah.
You think about Chandler is like the only person on there, and when he smokes, everyone hates him.
They like make him quit.
That's more of what I think.
And he's embarrassed of it too. He's like smoking in his cubicle and like blowing it into the desk drawer. But this came before. This was 1991, so Friends started in 1994-ish. So this was a few years before, but it's really interesting to me to like see a show where, like desirable male characters and female characters presumably are smoking. It's very much not the case now.
And then this sets up for I don't know. There's a couple of very awkward moments in this episode, and this is definitely I thought this might be the most awkward one, where Rondall walks in while they're going through his stuff and talking about him, and he reacts and says his breath doesn't smell bad, I think.
Yeah, it was weird. I thought something was going to come of that, like he was going to confront Tim, but it's very much like a build-up, and then the situation just kind of just fizzles, just sort of dissolves.
They just, Jill and Tim walk outside, they excuse themselves for, what they just did, and they kind of have a more intense conversation about nothing's going on, you should trust me.
Yeah, she said, he says, like, every time I look, this guy is, trying to flirt with you, or is trying to put moves on you, and she says, well, I haven't been given 10 minutes alone since he got here. Tim says, fine, you want 10 minutes, you can have it, and then he excuses himself to the roof. Where do you think the kids are throughout this? Are they we just to imagine they're in their rooms? Like, this episode was so boring to me that I found myself wondering what the three kids were doing.
Yeah, I would imagine they're playing somewhere, but we haven't seen them. I mean, their place of choice to play, from what we've seen, is outside, and they're not there, obviously, because we have Tim up there on the satellite dish. So maybe since he's working, doing something semi-dangerous and something could fall off the roof, maybe they're relegated somewhere into their rooms and playing there. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. Okay. I mean, Brad's probably watching TV.
Brad's watching Spartacus or Lolita or some Stanley Kubrick film. And Mark is, what does Mark do? Let's talk about this. We'll get back to the episode, but what kind of things is Mark doing? Like, what is Mark into? Yeah, like, what's he into? Huh? Like, what are his interests? He wants to be like his dad, so does that mean is Mark like playing with like a toy tool set?
Bob the Builder of the 90s? Yeah. Maybe. Okay. Maybe that's what he's doing. Yeah. Maybe he strikes me as a kid who would really like dinosaurs.
What makes you say that?
Just a random thought, okay. I guess. Right. There wasn't a lot behind that.
I mean, you are kind of a deeper. Mark. We've established that you're sort of a Mark figure, so kind of put us in the head of Mark. Like, what you think? Building blocks, Bob the Builder, dinosaurs.
You got to have something where you mostly are playing on your own. So you got to have something that's actively engaging your imagination. I think dinosaurs do that.
You have to have that. You have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just not going to make
Otherwise, what's the point? So Brad's watching TV, probably. Mark is playing with... What's Randy doing? I think Randy is on, like, the earliest version of, like, a Macintosh computer, and I think he's getting in some trouble. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he's in like a chat room.
Yeah, he's in a chat room, and he's talking about things that maybe he shouldn't be talking about, but that's just speculation. As the Randy...
It's just conjecture.
As the Randy of the podcast, I feel comfortable saying that. So
we might need to bring a guest star someday just to get in his head a little bit more.
I'm just waiting for the opportunity to share the story of the time that I met Brad, Zachary Ty Bryan.
You're gonna hold that for a later episode?
Yeah, that's a whole podcast. Is the time that I was staying at the same hotel as.
Don't blow it now.
Okay, all right, I won't. If you want to know the story, you got to keep listening. That's the payoff. All right, so you want to return to this episode? I suppose we should.
I suppose we can.
All right,
so after that awkward moment, Rondall is back with Jill. As you said, Tim's on the roof, and he tries to. This is probably the first moment I see him really hitting on her.
Yeah.
He offers to have lunch alone with her before the interview. Yeah. At first, he presents it as something where one of his colleagues is going to be there who could help her with the job, but then conveniently, that colleague is out of town. But he would still like to get lunch with her before the interview.
It's the lamest pickup ever, because he says, yeah, we can have lunch with, I know the VP of whatever at wherever. Mm-hmm. And then about 4 seconds later, he's like, oh no, shoot, I forgot. That guy's going to be in Cleveland. It's like, okay, yeah. We see what you're doing, Rondall, and we're not buying it.
Mm-mm.
No way.
And at the same time, Tim is, he's on the roof-ish. He's suspending himself.
Yeah.
Spying on them upside down. It's kind of like Spider-Man,
I
would say.
Yeah. At first I thought he fell unintentionally, but I guess we're to assume that he is doing that on his own accord. Like, he is meaning to be in that position, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's got I don't know. There's no way to think that he accidentally fell. He's not.
There's no way to think he accidentally fell. He always accidentally falls. That's all he does.
He seems in control at this point. Maybe not of his emotions, but of his body.
Right.
So
okay,
that's where I'll leave it.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So Rondall is hitting on Jill, and Jill, for the first time in the episode, seems to be kind of aware of the fact that maybe Rondall's advances, or rather, his conversations, are not altogether altruistic. So Rondall, he mentions that he thinks that he sees Tim spying on them. He says Tim is jealous, and he says that Tim has every right to be jealous because he sees kind of the back and forth, the rapport, the relationship that they have, and then he accuses Jill of sending out signals. And I think we'll play a clip of this.
I think he's a little bit uncomfortable with me, and I think it's because he's sensing what I've been sensing.
Which is what?
Well, you have been sending out signals.
Signals? What signals?
Well, you asked me out for coffee after class.
Oh, no. There were four of us. You were just way across the table.
Oh, yeah, but every time I turn around from the blackboard, I see you staring into my eyes.
No, that's just paying attention. That's a good thing.
I don't know why you're fighting it, Jill. There's obviously something happening between us. I mean, I feel it. You feel it. It's chemistry.
No, I flunked chemistry.
Jill, you're playing hard to get. I love that.
No, I'm playing no-get. I am a no-get woman. I'm a happy, married, no-get woman with a wonderful husband.
Here's Mr. Wonderful now.
Honey, are you all right?
Just testing the safety line on this, honey.
Rondall, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. You're pretending to throw me out because your husband can see us.
I'm really throwing you out.
I think you should speak a little louder, so we can hear you.
Here's your coat. There's the door.
Well, that's a good touch with the jacket. I like that.
Look, Rondall, you want a signal?
Uh-huh.
Here is your signal.
Wait a minute. I'm confused. Does that mean we're not having lunch?
Get out!
So Rondell in that clip accuses Jill of sending out some signals, kind of as Tim said earlier, a little bit of testosterone mixed with some estrogen, and Rondell says that the chemistry is obviously there between them and starts, blatantly hitting on her. And at this point, Tim is falling, instead of the controlled fall that he was doing where he was fine, he almost falls off the roof and ends up tied up in his own ropes. But
he's very intricately tied up too. I mean, it's impossible that he could have gotten that tangled. But yeah,
no, but he somehow does it anyway. Yeah. But I mean, would you agree with Rondell at this point that she's sending out some sort of signals? Or I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me once he starts turning on his charm that way, she pretty much spurns his advances.
Yeah. I don't know if Jill is sending out signals, and you're right. The second that Rondall really turns up the heat, literally and I guess figuratively, sure, she does.
Wait, does he go to the thermostat?
No, well, I guess it would only be figuratively. Okay. He doesn't. Well, I don't. You don't. Did you watch the deleted scenes where he goes to the thermostat, turns up the heat, and says,
"No,
it's hot
they didn't
here."
have those on the. Sorry, I didn't think they were on there. So,
you gotta
so that way they'll, obviously remove
features.
more clothing.
Yeah, you gotta start doing more research.
Oh,
so he's figuratively turning up the heat. And Jill, at that point, Jill does kind of step back. So I guess, no, Jill's not sending out signals, but she could have been, and perhaps should have been more aware of Rondall's intentions early on, I would say.
Yeah, I think she's kind of naive at that point, I guess. But she quickly, like we said, stands up for herself. And she, frankly, tosses Rondell out on his butt.
She throws his briefcase out. She boots him out. Rondall thinks that she's playing hard to get at this point. Like he thinks it's like she's like saying these things so that Tim will hear and that they can kind of continue their facade. That was peculiar.
My question is, how many women has Rondell done this to in his seminar? Am I to expect that a man like this is the first time he's tried doing this?
I don't know. I mean, at the end of this episode, I was thinking Rondall spinoff. Rondall's resumes. On CBS, 9 p.m. Oh. No, on ABC, I guess. But no, I do get the feeling very much that Rondall, he is pulling this. He's doing things of this nature quite often. He seemed to kind of have it down.
Unfortunately, I would agree. Yeah. But so after Rondell's thrown out, Jill goes outside. She sees Tim dangling there, and she tries to help him out of his predicament. And they kind of chat. She says, "You're right, and you were right about Rondell, and he was trying to hit on me." Blah blah blah. And there's a nice moment here where Tim says he'd be a fool not to hit on you, and I thought that was one of the. We've had several of those moments throughout the show. Kind of the resolution of all the episodes ends up being where Tim has to say something cute or do something cute to kind of redeem himself. And at this point, he's actually right, but he still does it anyway to help resolve the episode. So I thought that was a nice moment between them.
Yeah, it didn't really do much for me.
No,
I don't. It was
you were more of a Rondall guy, so you were just mad that he was.
I was just waiting for Rondall to literally turn up the heat. I was just kind of looking for him in the background to be doing that.
He's gonna throw a log on the fire.
Stoke the fire. It was fine. I think that I just thought Tim all tangled up in the rope was just so stupid that I had trouble focusing on what was being said. But it was okay. It's what they do on this show, 2 minutes left. You gotta try to make up, kiss and make up, and they did do that. So the next scene, we see the family all piled up on the couch together, and I actually thought that was nice. Like that was like I just the image of the whole family fitting on this couch, the mother and father, bookends, and then the three boys in the middle. I thought that was sort of a nice thing.
It's hard to find in America these days. Getting the whole family around the dinner table or around the TV.
Don't even get me started on familial dynamics in America these days.
And you'll notice that none of those kids is staring at their phone.
Yeah, and that's why I loved it.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, millennials and their phones. I mean,
as two millennials themselves.
Yeah, we love our phones, don't we? It's just another NPR article on millennials living with their parents and being on their phones. No, I liked it, and the joke here is that they now have 200 channels, which I guess would have seemed like a lot. I don't even know how many channels people have now.
When I think growing up, I think we had probably something like 60 when we were younger.
Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, probably. Like basic
the very
cable.
top of your. Yeah, the very top of your cable, extended cable would be like, I think ours was like VH1 or MTV, and it was like 60 or something. So it seems like a lot for a satellite.
Yeah, and so the joke here is they're scrolling through the 200 channels, and they've already seen everything.
They don't care what's on.
They don't care. They're not interested. So, more channels, more problems, I would say.
Yep.
Then Jill kind of takes control, and Jill says, "Hey, let's watch the opera." And similar to the moment where the boys are threatened with liver for dinner a few episodes back, everyone stops, inorganically screams. Tim takes the remote and he changes the channel. Crisis averted. They do not want to watch opera because opera is the worst.
Oh, man. And so there's one more scene at the end of the show, and I'm really going to ask you to put your thinking hat on here because...
It's on. I'll put it on for the first time since we started recording.
So Tim is on the Tool Time set, and he's using an electric sander to sand, I guess, a coffee table for an extended amount of time, but I don't really understand what's happening here, because basically the scene is he's sanding, and then he stops as if he's exhausted, and the producers come and help him.
Yeah, the producers of the actual Home Improvement show, I think, not the Tool Time producers.
I don't think the Tool Time show.
I think that he was messing around.
Adult?
I think it's a blooper or something. I think he was messing around between takes, and he wanted to kind of show off his ability to sand something for the live audience, and I think he did so with moderate success, and then he is done and everyone's cheering. I think that it was just him messing around between takes and they decided to use it.
Okay.
It's pointless. It serves no purpose.
I don't really want to go into what I thought it was, but
let's
just say I took the cue from the other two adult themed jokes earlier in the episode, and I thought it had something to do with that. So
you're not gonna just say that and move forward. I don't know what you mean. I actually don't know what you mean. The act of sanding is like the act of coitus?
Self-coitus.
Wow, no way. Why would you think that?
Well, see, that's why I thought that what I just wrote instead of that is what the heck is happening? Because it made no sense to me at all.
Get your mind out of the gutter is what I say.
Sorry.
We're going to lose our clean rating on iTunes. If we have a rating on iTunes. I'm going to say
that Home Improvement really set up that thought for me when I had to watch those two jokes earlier. I just thought at this point the producers were trying to throw in things that were just blatantly suggestive.
I would not call your reading of that, if I were if I were some kind of a therapist or psychologist, I think I'd have some follow-up questions for your take on that. But
I'm glad you don't.
Yeah,
and I'd
I
like
don't,
to say,
and I'm
let's
not.
move on to the highs and lows.
All right, sure, yeah, we'll transition, and that is the episode. So that is Satellite on a Hot Tim's Roof. Highs and lows. I guess I'd like you to go first.
All right. Boy, I'm reaching for some highs here.
I have a high.
No, I got
okay,
one. I got one. Let me go.
Sorry.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah.
But I will say, okay, the first time around I watched this episode, I didn't really get anything from it. The second time, I gotta say, Jill had some moments where I thought it was kind of a mini breakthrough from her. A lot of the things we've seen her do throughout the show have been kind of relegated to background duties or being things basic. She's been struggling to get a new job. She's been struggling to assert her own wishes and what she wants with Tim, as far as, getting him to go to a nice dinner or ballroom dancing, doing things together, getting him to lay off the dishwasher, whatever. And as far as her kind of taking control and throwing out Rondall at the end, I thought that was kind of a mini breakthrough for her. She kind of asserted herself in that way. And that kind of in the same vein, I thought there was, I thought there was genuine tension, although it was kind of relieved in anticlimactic moments between Tim and Rondall when they're, when Tim is caught going through his stuff. Like, I wasn't exactly sure what would happen at that moment, and I really thought that could have gotten out of hand if it wasn't like a 90s sitcom. I don't know.
Okay.
No, you don't think so?
I mean,
you think if this wasn't... You don't think those things could have blown up more? I guess if I were
but how's that,
Rondall...
but how's that high? That should be a low, because they didn't do anything with it.
No. Well, yeah, I mean, it is a low because they didn't do anything with it, but at least there was something there.
They're building
because
tension.
In a lot of episodes... Yeah, in a lot of things, I don't feel like they're building tension at all.
Yeah, alright, I mean...
I said, I was really reaching for highs here.
Alright, fine. Okay. My highs are, I think that the Sam McMurray portrayal of Rondall is reasonably well done. The character is very much, unlikable and creates, a visceral reaction. He's antagonizing. I think that's, a good character performance, character role, good cameo. I thought that was a well done. It's the second episode in a row where we've had walk on performances that are reasonably memorable and well done. So I think I will remember the Rondall portrayal. Beyond that, I guess I found Tim to be more likable in this episode. Sort of sympathetic, insecure.
Tim was right for the first time.
Yeah, he was right. Yeah, you're right. He was right for the first time. He's sympathetic. I think that it's nice and okay to see, Tim as sort of an insecure man at times. Because for so much of what we've seen so far is, Tim just sort of buffoonish and just selfish. And in this one, he was more well-rounded, more realistic, I felt like. That's... what happened in this episode and Tim's sort of reactions, felt like something that, an actual husband might feel. So I guess that was something that was well done. Just a more sympathetic Tim. You want to talk about your lows?
Oh, boy.
Try to narrow it down to a few.
I still want more out of Al. I still want more Al at this point. Mm-hmm. And more tool time in general. There's a lot of stuff happening at home, mm-hmm. and I think that's fine, but it's been episode after episode after episode, so it's definitely time for them to get a little bit more action on a different set than the home stage. And I would say, boy, Rondall's name is brutal.
I like that. I thought that made the character. That's character building.
It set him up for failure.
You knew before that guy walked in that with a name like Rondall, he was going to be, a
He's
tool.
Up to no good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's really about it for me.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to rank the episodes, but this was my least favorite so far. I liked Mo Better Blues more than I liked this. So this, yeah, I know it's hard to. It's tough to admit, but this was my least favorite episode. Lows, I just overall the plot, like, there was just one basic plot line. Last week we had a couple different things going on, and that was interesting to cut back and forth. This was just very much one thing, and we were building up to this moment where, like, I thought Tim and Rondall were gonna have they were gonna have like a showdown, or like there was gonna be like something where Jill sort of told off Rondall, or like this big moment where we see Rondall as just this sort of loathsome figure, and it never really happens, like.
No, I mean, I think people would say her throwing him out was that moment that they built up to.
Yeah, but then it just didn't do enough. Yeah, it just didn't do enough for me. Like, I don't know, it was still.
You wanted her to slap him.
That would have been nice, yeah. Or like for Tim to, like, I don't know. I just wanted more. Like, if they're gonna devote all this time, like the whole episode, to one thing happening, like, it would be nice if there was sort of more to hang on to at the end. Like, it just seemed like all of a sudden, like, Jill sort of, like, oh, this guy wants me to go to lunch with him alone. And Rondall says, yeah, there's some chemistry between us. And then Jill's like, oh, get out. I want more than that. If they're gonna devote all this time to the dynamics of, like, Tim being jealous, and I just would have liked to have Tim at least be a part of that final scene.
I have a question. Do you think that Jill would have been so quick to think that Rondall was coming on to her when he asked her to go to lunch alone without Tim acting all jealous before that?
Maybe not.
I kind of think not.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of raises red flags for her.
Yeah.
At that point, and so she's super sensitive to anything that might be that
well, like,
way.
she also, prior to Rondall coming, seemed... Maybe she was just, like, playing coy, but she didn't seem like she had ever even considered the possibility that Rondall was...
Yeah, it was more like a joke.
Rondall's hitting on me, like she was, like, trying to sort of goad Tim. But, yeah, it didn't seem like she'd ever considered the fact that Rondall might be sort of a sleaze. So, I don't know, that's tough to answer.
I thought of another high.
Okay.
Besides the joke that Rondall and Jill shared, I thought that Jill's jokes in this episode were better.
Yeah.
Like they were very much playing off of Tim.
Yeah.
Instead of monologue-ish.
You're right. Yeah.
I thought
this is despite, like, whether or not, like, we agree with her actions in the episode, like, this is a better Jill episode. Yeah. Like, she's funnier, she gets more to do, she kind of speaks out against Tim, and Tim is sort of receptive to that. So yeah, I agree, this is a good Jill episode. And I thought that the Wilson scene, like, the Wilson stuff continues to be funny and nice and sort of like a welcomed break from everything that's Tim and Jill.
I would agree.
Alright. So now we're going to go ahead and transition into user reviews.
User review.
Okay, so user reviews. Bad news this week. No more Callenvoss. Jordan Callenvoss. No está en aquí. So, are you worried?
It hurts.
Are you concerned?
I'm a little concerned. I don't want to look ahead to see if Callenvoss comes back at some point.
I refuse to. It would too much labor.
Too much labor. So we're just gonna hope that Callenvoss had a vacation or a siesta
in 2014.
Yep, and came back later and wrote some stuff. The good news is that Sean Labe and Explorer DS are back,
and with a vengeance. So I'll do the Explorer DS 6789 review, published December 15, 2013, titled "How's It Hanging?" Which is referring to Tim hanging off the roof, I would imagine. So Explorer DS, long write up. So let me just cherry pick a few things here. So I just wanted to focus on the first paragraph. Explorer DS makes a joke that I wish I would have thought of earlier on, referring to Rondall as Rondall, D-U-L-L. I'm not going to read the sentence, but that is a good joke, and they deserve to be... they deserve to receive a shout-out for that. So reading the final paragraph here. During the credits, we see Tim sanding the hell out of a table. And I mention this because, for some reason, during a recent syndicated run that was playing during the closing credits of various episodes, I have no idea why, but then it's syndication, who can explain it? As for Satellite on a Hot Tim's Roof, besides having a great title,
really?
I have to say that there really wasn't much story or plot to this one. The only memorable thing that happens is Tim dangles off the roof. I guess they could have gone all out and shown him falling off repeatedly, but that could get old pretty fast. Yeah, I'd be ashamed for that to happen. I'd be ashamed for that to happen on the show.
For real.
It's such a standard basic sitcom fare about a guy moving in on another guy's wife, and there's some awkwardness and misunderstandings, and that's about it. It's dull, to say the least, but at the same time, it isn't a bad episode. It's still worth seeing at least once. So this is noteworthy because we've not really read a review where someone said that they didn't like an episode.
Yeah, and boy, I'm shocked that the memorable moment for Explorer DS was Tim hanging out.
Yeah, that was not memorable at all for me.
No.
Yeah, it is dull, but at the same time, it isn't a bad episode. I would say it's dull and a bad episode, and
it's Rondall.
It's a Rondall episode. So thank you, Explorer DS, for that wordplay. So you want to go ahead and take the next one?
Yeah, well, as a juxtaposition from Explorer DS's tepid review, we've got just rave reviews again from Sean Labe. The title of his review is Greatness on a Hot TV Show's Episode. So, well done, Sean. And Sean starts out by saying, this episode of Home Improvement shows a lot of defining baseline character traits for Tim and Jill. It shows Tim's jealousy and it shows Jill's faithfulness. And really, I don't remember Tim's jealousy as being like a baseline character trait for Tim, so we'll have to pay attention to that going forward. Sean goes on to say, it was nice to see how faithful and loyal Jill is to Tim. Not to mention this episode is better than the first 3 episodes in the series combined.
Wow.
It's indescribable how hilarious this episode is, and
I feel like that is a common Sean Labe, indescribable.
Indescribable. I mean, he does describe a little bit how funny it is, but it's indescribable how hilarious it is, and for the first time in the series, showed just how amazing the show was going to be. A must-watch, 10 out of 10 easily.
I could not disagree more with all that was said.
Yeah, I'd say Sean does definitely diverge from our opinions on this episode, but that's okay. That's
why we read the reviews, right, Jordan?
We want everyone's input on this, and just like Sean Labe, and just like Explorer DS, and hopefully like Colin Voss in the future, we want to hear what you think of these episodes. So to do that, we've mentioned this before, definitely reach out to us on Twitter at Home Impodcast. Reach out to us on Facebook, Home Impodcast. You can email us, homeimpodcast@gmail.com. There's a contact form on our blog, homeimpodcast.wordpress.com. Any other ways for them to reach us? I guess write a review on iTunes. Definitely do that if you enjoy the show or don't enjoy the show. We'd love to hear how we can improve.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'd also like to maybe solicit some questions for next week's episode. I don't know that we'll get any, but I'd like to open the floodgates and say if you have any questions, anything that you'd like to hear us discuss on the episode, we'd be more than happy to do so. So any one of our social media accounts, go ahead and just shoot us a question. It can be about various episodes, it can be about the series as a whole, but we would very much like to hear from some of our listeners, even if it just proves to us that we have listeners. So that would be nice. And next week I'm in the process of getting my hands on Tim Allen's book, Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man. And so next week you can look forward to an excerpt or two from that as well. So
I look forward to that myself.
Yeah, hey, me too. It is en route. So, Jordan, you want to close things with a question here? So let's talk about television. This episode revolves around Tim getting a satellite so we can have 200 channels. Let's just talk about what are you watching right now? What are some shows that you are sort of attached to at the current time?
Well, I'll tell you that we've kind of been in the transition. I mentioned DirecTV earlier. I've tried out PlayStation Vue, which some of our listeners might have heard of, and so we're kind of in the process of transitioning to that. But right now, obviously the finals just ended. I'm a big sports guy, so I watch mostly sports. But a lot of shows that I watch are driven by my wife's appetite for TV.
Insatiable appetite.
Insatiable. So in a lot of series actually just ended. She watched Awkward, which was on MTV. That one just ended. We're currently in the throes of Bachelorette, which is heating up, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Literal heat.
Literal heat in Argentina.
Oh wow.
They were in Buenos Aires last episode, so And then we're watching Big Bang Theory around here quite a bit.
Man.
So a lot of your
television
shows
watching. I just let's just skip to what I'm watching, I guess. Because
wait, hold on, I'm not done here. Well, no, I mean for the most part, I don't watch a lot of TV to be honest. It's mostly sports. Okay. So I've been watching a lot of the Euro Cup stuff.
Yeah.
Some baseball when I can get my hands on it. I watch mostly the Tigers.
Okay.
And like I said, NBA Finals are over, so a lot of my TV viewing habits have sadly been replaced by shows like The Bachelorette. So.
All right.
But I won't lie, I like it more than I should.
Bachelorette is enjoyable, guilty pleasure. Big Bang Theory, I have real problems with, but different time, different place. I just finished up Veep in Silicon Valley on HBO, particularly like the Silicon Valley season. Right now, my lady friend and I are rewatching Friends. We're in the 3rd season. That's been really enjoyable. You probably noticed I've been referencing Friends a lot because it's fresh in my mind. And we're also working our way through the newest season of Orange is the New Black, which has not been, in my opinion, as good as the previous seasons. So,
ouch.
Yeah, you watch any of those?
No, I've never. So we don't have Netflix right now, so I don't watch Orange is the New Black. I also don't have HBO, so no Veep, no. What was the other one that?
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. Although I thought that looked interesting, and I probably would like it. Interesting to note that neither of us really watch Game of Thrones. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I think I'm just gonna wait for it all to be done, and then I'll get to it. Then I've watched one episode, but just didn't pull me in. So at this point, I think I'll just hold off until the end.
Yeah, I think I watched part of an episode a long time ago, and I wasn't too thrilled by it. But maybe I'll read the books, and that will get me more interested.
All right. Who knows? Well, I think we will call it quits for Satellite on a Hot Tim's Roof. Next time on Home Impodcast, we're going to be looking at Episode 5, Wild Kingdom. Until next time, thank you all for listening, and talk to you later, Jordan.
Talk to you later. Hasta luego.